All right, awesome. Hi, everyone. Today we are here talking to Natasha Gale of Natasha Wellness. She is a personal chef and she practices Aryveda. And we're talking today, I'm really excited, in honor of PCOS Awareness Month. We've been wanting to have this talk for a long time, and we are finally sitting down to chat. Hi, Natasha.
Hi, Angie. How are you?
I guess to get started, why don't we just take a minute for you to share your story, tell people about what you do, and why we're talking to you today in honor of PCOS Awareness Month.
Absolutely. So, I am a yoga teacher, health coach, and personal chef. I help my clients eat better. I personalize everything that I do because I know that everybody has their own sort of, everyone is an individual. So, that comes from my knowledge of Ayurveda. I help people sort of figure out their balances and imbalances, and with food, general dietary guidelines, exercise, and just sort of like lifestyle changes. I help them balance their bodies and live their best lives. And so, um, my sort of connection to PCOS is that I actually have it myself. I was diagnosed about 10 years ago, and I'm a world of a difference from what I was back when I was in my early 20s. And I kind of solved everything myself through diet. My doctors always just tried to put me on like birth control, which never did anything. It's just a Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
And so, through my own research and understanding, I kind of figured out, okay, these are the things that I need to do in order to take care of myself and feel better. So that's where I am.
Yay. I know I found you originally after my daughter was born, and I was still I don't know, a few months after she was born and like really struggling to cook for myself and the family, and was able to connect with you, and you brought us over some meals, and it was amazing and super, super helpful because I wanted to eat healthy during that time more than ever because I had this newborn and I was breastfeeding, and I was exhausted and I needed it so badly, but I just didn't have the time or the resource to do it on my own. So you were such a godsend to us.
Oh.
Um, awesome. And then really started recommending you professionally to my patients. And that has been a really wonderful, wonderful connection for them because food wise, I think people really want to eat healthy and they know, or at least they have a sense of what makes them feel better and what makes them feel worse, but they just don't have the time and the energy and the resource to be the ones sitting down and cooking. So to have you be able to prepare healthy meals that are really specific to their diet and their health and then deliver them, I mean, just, oh my God, so, so helpful. So have been forever grateful and excited to have you as a resource for myself and for them since we met. So,
Thank you
um,
so much. Likewise. Yeah, I help a lot of people that are either just too busy with work, or they're like postpartum, or preparing for a surgery, or coming out of a surgery, and it's just
yeah,
anybody who's too busy and wants to eat well and doesn't want to get, Chinese every single night because of the convenience. Like, I try to make it as convenient as possible to eat the foods that are customized to you and your body and make you feel the best that you possibly can.
yeah, so great. And I
Yeah.
think when we're talking, the reason that we're talking about or talking to you today on PCOS Awareness Month is because sometimes women with PCOS have stricter diets. They feel better when they truly do eliminate things that are either processed foods or inflammatory foods. And that often means gluten and dairy and having really, really low sugar diets. And um, yeah, they feel way better, but it's harder to cook that way. It just takes more know-how, and you have to be a little bit more creative to find recipes. And not everybody was raised cooking that way, and so it's not an automatic thing. And having someone who can cook with those needs in mind, I think is just such an amazing resource. So anyway, what I wanted to kind of just talk about first off, when we're helping people understand how to eat for PCOS, lots of them know, oh, it's all about low carbs and no sugar. But can you just talk to us a little bit about like what are when you're looking at women who have PCOS, what are kind of the fundamental food like principles that you tend to follow to help them manage symptoms? And when I say manage symptoms, we're looking at for me anyway, in my office, we're talking a lot about women who are trying to conceive. And so the biggest symptom is anovulatory cycles or irregular cycles. Because when you're trying to get pregnant, you want to have as many tries as you can in, a relatively reasonable period of time. And when you're having anovulatory cycles, sometimes you can have 35 days, 45-day, or beyond cycles. And that means you don't get to try once a month. And it means it's hard to figure out when to try. So from my point of view, that's the most important thing that we're working on as far as symptoms. But anyway, let's get back to the question, which I get on tangent, which is like, what are kind of like basic food principles when working with somebody who has PCOS?
Sure. So, as you know, diet affects PCOS and weight management quite a bit. So, insulin production and resistance can be something that's a little bit harder to manage for those of us that have PCOS.
Yep.
I have sort of these overarching like food guidelines that anybody with PCOS can follow, and really anybody can benefit from these guidelines as well. So like if you're someone who has PCOS and you live with someone who doesn't, you're not going to be on this like boring, weird diet that like they can't join you in on. So it's all about eating a very clean diet. So that's sort of the groundwork. Clean diet, whole foods, whole fruits and veggies, very high quality meats. And then what you'll probably hear a lot of is like low carb, no sugar. So what does that mean? Like, can you never eat a sweet potato again? No, it means like don't be eating croissants every single day and don't go out for ice cream every single night. But it doesn't mean that you have to eliminate all these things altogether. So stick to the sort of healthy carbs like quinoa, whole grain buckwheat, brown rice. Buckwheat's really good for hormone balance. And things like sweet potatoes or, like even regular potatoes aren't the devil food that everybody thinks they are. And then for ice cream, make yourself like a little banana and ice cream every now and then, So it's all about trying to go for the low sugar foods out there, staying away from processed foods. So anything that has an ingredient label, try to stay away from it as much as possible. And it's not to say, again, that you can never have it, but if you're 80% of the time really taking care to eat something in its whole food form, then you're moving towards your, hopefully PCOS free lifestyle.
Yeah. I find diet is by far the most important thing when we're managing PCOS. And I really see huge improvements in symptoms when people can be pretty consistent on their diet. And like you said, it doesn't mean that you don't ever have to, like you can never have a sweet treat or you can never have a piece of processed food or, something out of a package ever again. But it does mean that you have to make a commitment to the primary food sources in your life being whole foods. And what we mean by whole foods is like fruits, vegetables, meats, poultries, eggs, stuff like that, and things that don't come out of a package. And like you said, something that doesn't have a nutritional label on it, like an eggplant or an apple or
yeah, exactly.
a bunch of spinach. And really that's what we recommend as well in our clinic is like, preparing your own food as much as possible, because when you're eating out and when you're buying things, even at the Whole Foods Hut Bar, the oils are all, not clean oil. Yeah, and rancid.
Yes.
It's just you do so much better off when you can consistently be preparing your meals on your own or be getting a food service like yourself where somebody is preparing foods for you very specifically with your health goals in mind.
Right, exactly. And just to build on that, I would also recommend a gluten-free and as dairy-free as possible diet. And that is because gluten, it's very inflammatory. And what we're trying to do is reduce inflammation. If you are going to eat dairy, small amounts is okay here and there. I recommend raw. I recommend, knowing that it's hormone-free, coming from a good source. And if you're going to eat it, goat and sheep is a better choice than cow, just because their bodies can process it so much better.
Yep. I totally agree with that. I feel like if you need to eat dairy, the dairy to choose from are the hard aged cheeses and not things like yogurt. Yogurt, people think, oh, yogurt is healthy because it has probiotics in it, but actually that's more of a marketing game than anything else, that there are much better ways to get probiotics for yourself. And it's certainly not good enough reason to have a sugary yogurt. But if you're going to have dairy, there are dairies that are going to be less inflammatory and impact, like you said, like hard cheeses, aged cheeses, so much better for you than cow's milk and your daily yogurt. People have yogurt and granola all the time. It's tough. It's a very inflammatory breakfast to have.
Yeah, it's all really just a sugar bomb. And there's a really good dairy-free yogurt called Lavva, Lavva, that I really like. It's made out of cassava root.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's actually like pretty good. And then there's like Koyo, which is another good one for those. I love yogurt, so like that was for me like, oh my gosh, I have to find something I really love.
Yeah.
And in terms of when you said there's better places to get probiotics, sauerkraut, like raw fermented sauerkraut, have a spoonful every day and you're solid, or I know that you have an amazing supplement that I've taken before with like how many billion? It was super high and I loved it.
So really, that's so funny. So I just started a month protocol on one that's 350 billion, which is the highest. That's some serious probiotic. But we often recommend one that's either 100 billion, and then we have another one that's 60 billion. And they're fantastic, and they make such a difference. I would so much rather someone take a probiotic like that than be eating a daily yogurt, because number one, I think that usually the sugar content in the yogurt outweighs the benefit of the probiotic. And number two, like the probiotic's either dead or probably not very high doses in the yogurt that you're taking. But anyway,
that's true.
We could talk all day about just probiotics. But yeah, I agree with you. There's so much out there for us, and as much as possible as we can stay away from inflammatory foods, and keeping your sugars down, like those are the most important things when we're thinking about PCOS, really.
Absolutely.
And then, you just gave a couple of Lavva yogurt. I can't believe I've never heard about this. Cassava flour is so great. We use it all the time in our cooking. In fact, I'm going to make cauliflower fritters this afternoon for the first time for me and baby Lennon. I say I'm going to cook for Lennon, but really,
it's for you.
Yeah, we're going to use cassava flour in our fritters. So anyway, such a great resource when you're trying to either be paleo or just low carb. But what are some of your other fun resources? And I'll put them in the notes under the video so people can reference them. But what are some of your other favorite either people or products or cookbooks for women with PCOS?
Sure. So the woman who introduced me to how to take care of hormones in a holistic, healthy way is this woman, Alisa, Vitt, which she actually is from Newton, Mass.
She is?
She is, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. We produce a lot of really cool people in Massachusetts.
We have other Massachusetts people in our reference list here too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Alisa Vitt, she runs Flow Living. It's a hormone clinic in New York City. She also has a book called Woman Code, which is a Bible for me and many people that I know. A lot of good food recs in there, and a lot of just really like down to earth information that's very easy to digest.
Yep.
She also has a lot of free lives on Facebook. She does one a week, I think, on her Facebook, and they're very informative and helpful. I watch them all the time. And then for cookbooks, there's a woman named Kate O'Donnell who's an Ayurvedic counselor. She is in Brookline, Mass, and she teaches out of Down Under Yoga Studio on Beacon Street. I'm not sure if she still teaches yoga, but she definitely teaches Ayurveda there. And she has 2 cookbooks. One of them just came out this past year. The first one is called Everyday Ayurveda. So if you're interested in like figuring out like what's your dosha, well, first of all, you can come to me and I can help you with that. But if you're interested in like...
And dosha, can you take a second to explain what that means?
Oh, yes, definitely. I always just like assume everybody knows. But yeah, so in Ayurveda, there's this is what I was talking about earlier, how there's balances and imbalances. So the sort of Ayurvedic way of breaking that down is in doshas. So there are 3 different doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and we are all made up of all of them. And they're essentially like each dosha is 2 elements. So we're all made of elements and earth, and this is just a really logical way to break it down and understand our individuality a little bit more. So you understand, okay, maybe you take this little quiz online, which I can send you a link to, and you essentially figure out generally what your imbalances are just by answering these questions, like, is your skin dry, oily, or somewhere in the middle? What about your hair? What's your mood? What's your energy? And it kind of just breaks everything down. And if you have an increase in one of the doshas, that means, okay, you have too much of that. So let's calm that down. And so there are different ways to do that with food, exercise, lifestyle. A lot of it is like spirituality and routine and building really healthy habits. So everything that I do sort of brings it starts with that and it comes back to that. And so so Kate has a cookbook that breaks down each of it's actually a very approachable way to understand what Ayurveda is in a very quick snippet. So if you're kind of curious, and there's so much literature out there, like, get her cookbook, and she has very simple, easy recipes. They're not like extravagant or it's not to say that they're not like, oh my God, drool worthy delicious, but they're just like simple foods. You know what I mean? Like something you can whip up for yourself. And then the other cookbook author that I really love is Liz Moody. She just came out with her 2nd cookbook called Healthier Together, and all the meals are for 2 people, which is great if you're just 2 people or just 1 person. And her recipes are a lot more like, oh, what's a healthy pad see ew, or what's a healthy she actually has I think she has like a fried cauliflower dish in there as well. So there's this food out there that you feel like you can never eat again, but really you just have to make a healthier version of it. And that's kind of what I'm all about too.
Yep. I loved you said, I can't remember if it was before we first record or during our talk, but that it's not that you never have ice cream before, you have to make something alternative. That's like a healthier food. It might still have a little bit of sugar in it. Even if it's a natural sugar, it might raise your blood sugar a little, but it's not going to be nearly as impactful in a negative way as something as blatant as ice cream. Ice cream for PCOS folks it's like kryptonite.
I know. It really is.
It's like sugar and the worst kind of dairy all in one, fell swoop. It's tough. But there are lots of alternatives that you can make on your own that are delicious and still have a little bit of a sweet to it, that I think once you get used to and once you get creative, you can really benefit from, or it will satisfy your craving.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Don't mind me awkwardly moving around. I'm just plugging my phone in.
No. From like emotional, mental state, I mean, we've touched about it, just talking about it now, but we've touched on it a little bit, but because sometimes PCOS diets feel, at least originally, so restrictive, or they can feel that way, how do you approach it from like a mental, emotional standpoint so that people can set themselves up with food practices and habits that are sustainable?
What immediately comes to mind is the practice of abundance and understanding that you have an abundance. And I think that is sort of coupled with a meditation practice. So I really love to wake up in the morning and sit for about 10 minutes or so. I use the Calm app. For me, it really works. There's a lot of different apps. There's Headspace. There's, I don't know. There's just so many these days. But sitting there and if you're ever in this sort of lack of mindset or fearful mindset, I find that really centering yourself at the start of the day and just saying, I have everything I need. I am abundant. I have everything that the world provides for me, and just kind of figuring out like what's your little mantra that is going to help you through. And then I think resources are going to be really crucial as well. Thinking back to when I got into the health and wellness world, I didn't really know where to start. I just started dissecting all of these books because the internet wasn't as as prevalent and full of resources as it is now. But now it's even more overwhelming because you can like Google something, get a bajillion results and be like, well, what do I believe? Do I go keto or paleo, or do I go vegetarian or vegan? So knowing, like, following the resources that you and I just shared is a great start. And also, you're a great resource. I'm here as a resource. Like, people can reach out, because it's okay if you have no idea what the hell is going on. Like, we all have to start somewhere. Yeah, we all have to start somewhere, and like, you'll make it through. I live an awesome life, and I'm gluten-free and dairy-free. I have PCOS and I have chronic Lyme, and I'm like living it up. So everybody will make it just fine.
Totally. I don't have PCOS, but I am gluten-free and dairy-free, and I have endometriosis, and I also feel the same way. Like,
Yeah.
it's worth it is the thing. But I love talk about abundance, because I think people feel like these restrictive diets, they can never enjoy food again. And I really just want to disprove that more and more, because there are amazing, easy ways to prepare food. But you do have to prepare it. You just have to put a little bit more attention into, like before you leave the house in the morning, you need to think about what you're going to eat that day, as opposed to thinking like, oh, I'll just pick something up at either the grocery store or the local house of pizza or something like that. But it's so worth it, because you're eating really good for you food, but it really can taste good. You just need to dive into some of the resources and get creative. But there's so much out there for us now, just like, at our fingertips at a touch of a button, that can help us figure out, like, I didn't know how to cook cauliflower fritters until this morning. So, well, if I can pull it off, but yeah, it just takes a little bit of time and dedication, and realizing that the resource is out there, and you can get creative, and there's so much good food.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when you're starting from scratch and you maybe don't really know how to cook, that's a little bit overwhelming to even hear cauliflower fritters is like I cook, and that for me is like, oh, well, I've never made those. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. But it takes, if you have the creativity and exploration and sort of want and need for that, then like go for it. But also don't feel like you have to be that person that makes like cauliflower pizza every night, or like, fancy lentil floured, who knows what, like you can go buy Tolerant Foods lentil pasta and like put some sauce that has no sugar in it, which these things you can buy at Whole Foods. And like you have a decent dinner on your plate. Or my favorite thing to do, like as a recommendation for people that just aren't sure how to like meal plan or meal prep, is make a healthy grain like buckwheat, brown rice, quinoa. Make some veggies. So just like roast a huge sheet of veggies, like just go for it, cover them in oil, salt, and pepper, maybe some garlic powder, and then cook a protein on the side. So if you want omega-3s, wild salmon, you can, grill some chicken. So just like whatever you have, it's sort of like it's an equation. It's like grain, veggie, throw in a handful of fresh greens, put in a protein of sorts, and like make a sauce if you're feeling fancy, but like olive oil and lemon does just as well. So it's not that hard. It's really not.
It's not. You just have to put some dedication in up front so that you can get a little bit more comfortable. The other resource I'll just say is Nom Nom Paleo. She does a ton of blogging, but her books are amazing. I literally just got her book, Ready or Not. Yay. So good.
I love her.
This month. She's amazing. But my favorite part about this book is that she really focused on getting foods that are like quick and easy to make, but taste really delicious. And she has a ton of sauces. And now I make a lot of the sauces in advance, and I freeze them like in little containers. I put them in the fridge, and then in the freezer, and then I just make a simple meal, like you said, like roasted veggies, and then I have a sauce to put over the veggies that I just pull out of the freezer in the morning.
And it elevates the whole thing.
It does. That's such a perfect word. It just takes it from like a little bit not exciting. Well, I love roasted vegetables, salt, pepper, and oil on them. So I don't know if I can even say that, but it does. It just takes it to a next level. And it's easy. You can just freeze a bunch all at one time and have it for, whenever you want.
I did that with cashew cheese sauce, like mac and cheese sauce.
Yeah.
And I made so much of it, and I was like, what do I do with it? And I was like, oh yeah, I can freeze it. I like forget that I have this freezer that I have, like, now I have soups and I have sauces, and I always have frozen spinach for my smoothies. Like, utilize your freezer. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's amazing. You just have, all it requires is just a little bit of planning.
For sure.
All right. Well, I want to wrap it up today so that we're not, so we're not overwhelming people. And I'll put all of these resources because I think they're a really great place to start for people with PCOS, especially like on the food front. But I guess you've kind of done this already as far as like a day's menu for someone with PCOS, but will you talk just like about some options, like some ideas of what people do? Because I think a lot of people get stuck on breakfast specifically. But can you just give us some ideas of what maybe a couple days or a day or so of a menu would look like for someone who's trying to be, low inflammatory?
Sure. So besides the dairy-free yogurts that I had brought up, also, like, side note, if you're gonna go for the granola, just like put some nuts in it and you'll get the crunch, and some fresh fruit and you're good. So besides that, my two breakfasts in rotation right now that are very low inflammatory, gluten-free, dairy-free, and perfect for PCOS are a green smoothie or fried egg taco. So the green smoothie is protein powder, and everyone has their own kind that they like. I like Orgain. It's not perfect. In my opinion, none of them are perfect. You just have to find.
But
And
they're
like,
ones. But they're just.
And I used to be very anti, and I was like, I can just add hemp seeds, but I never really added enough of everything, and it's just a perfect mix of everything in that powder, so I like it. And then I'll add frozen greens. I will do fruit free, so no bananas in my smoothies, because the glycemic index is insane, and so that just will not help you in the morning. You'll crash, you'll be starving. It's not helpful. So what happens is, like, that powder has some sweetness in it, and then I'll do almond butter, frozen spinach, almond milk, flax seeds, which are really good for hormonal balance, or like chia seeds. So these are both like fat protein. It's all about as Kelly LeVeque calls it, the Fab Four. So like every meal should have your greens, your protein. Oh, sorry, I got a phone call. Every meal should have your greens, your protein, your fats, and then your like healthy starches. So that's kind of how I model each meal. And then the other one that I really enjoy, the savory breakfast, is going to be fried eggs. I use a Siete Foods tortilla, and you can find those. They used to be in the freezer section in Whole Foods, but I think they actually moved them to the fridge. Yeah, which probably people are actually seeing them now, which is a good thing, because they're phenomenal. Like,
they're so good.
They're so good. They have a cassava one. Speaking of, they have an almond flour one, a cashew flour, chickpea flour.
Chickpea, yep.
Yeah, and all of them, they're phenomenal. Like, the only caveat is, like, either put it in a pan with a little oil and toast it up, or put it directly on your flame burner and flip it a couple times to char it.
Fun. I've never done that.
Yeah, it might light on fire. Like, don't be scared. Just blow it out. It's not like a huge fire, but it feels like an uber fancy thing to do, but you're really just like doing something real simple. And those are great and very tasty. It doesn't make me miss corn tortillas at all. And then I'll throw in like a little bit of sauerkraut on top, a little avocado for fat, maybe like Kite Hill Foods dairy-free cream cheese if I want that sort of texture on there. And then always a handful of greens. So that's kind of my go-to breakfast options. For lunch, I always just do like a big ass salad, and especially in the summer, we don't need as many grounding foods. So maybe in the winter I would go for like a chili or a grain bowl, but because it's summertime and our bodies just don't require that many foods that are grounding, because we are already like heavy in nature in the summer. Like, if you think about the humidity and the heat, like, you're just not as hungry. So your digestive fire isn't as strong. So you have to be very easy on it. Don't go eating like ribs and spicy foods, because it's just going to aggravate you. So and honestly, lunch and dinner for me is very interchangeable. So if it's not a salad for lunch, it's a salad for dinner. And then the other meal that I like to make is like what I was saying earlier, like some kind of protein, some kind of roasted veggies or sauteed veggies or something.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I never recommend snacking unless you're somebody that like really can't make it to the next meal, or if you have a really off schedule, say you work like a night shift or something and you really need that extra.
Sometimes people too, I think when their blood sugar regulation is like so kind of out of whack, that early on in the process before they are able to do some healing, like sometimes you need some snacks. But I agree, like once you're on track and you're able to like keep stabilized blood sugars throughout the day, you really shouldn't need to snack that much.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And yeah, the longer that you kind of keep your balance and without these large like rises and falls, you're not going to feel like, oh my God, if I don't eat something, I'm going to be famished, or like
Right.
that sort of like hangry feeling that like we've all gone through. It doesn't really happen as much. But like for the times where, you know, maybe my husband and I planned to have dinner at 7:30 and I ate lunch at 12, like I in no way can go that long. So I will have like veggie sticks or Simple Mills crackers with some hummus or guacamole, or like nuts and an apple or almond butter and an apple. So like having sort of like again like almost a full meal snack where you're not just eating an apple and just getting sugar, but you're adding in nuts to get some like protein and fat, so it keeps you satiated a little bit longer.
Yeah, so great.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, I want to keep it to a length where people have time to listen to us. So I think we'll wrap it up there. But I really, really appreciate you coming on today. And I think we gave a lot of amazing resources for folks. And I'll put them all down listed under the video when we post it, and as well as all of your information. But other than that, thank you again, and can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome talking to you. I'll talk to you
Thanks.
soon. Yeah.
Thanks, Natasha. Bye-bye.
Bye.